Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Griever back here, bringing you guys the latest behind-the-bar reviews for Akatsuki no Yona, also known as Yona of the Dawn. Yeah, chapter 192. This chapter, this gave us a lot. This was an excellent chapter. Who disagrees with me that this chapter was not excelente? This chapter was phenomenal because it gave us so much depth to characters we have known in passing. They're not the main characters. It's kind of like that Odin flashback with in One Piece and such, right? We don't know really a whole lot about Whitebeard or Roger or what they were like back then. You know, we hear the tales, we hear the rumors, we hear the stories, we hear the hearsay of people far younger while these people are already dead for decades. Now, we have a better picture. A well-rounded, painted picture of this story. Because we jump 3 months right away. Already, apparently, they keep using the term wife, but they haven't had the ceremony yet, so it's kind of like a fiance position. But Yonhee is already Yohan's wife, for all intents and purposes. He has chosen to marry her. When they met there on the tree hill after so long, he grabbed her and met with her mother and all this stuff. And we're kind of jumping back and forth in this chapter. But suffice it to say, he meets with her mother and the rest of the village by the sounds of it, and they regale him with the story. Yohan, Hawk, perfect. I swear, Hawk might be his, is him and soo-won brothers? I'm curious. That would make soo-won and Hawk the sword and the shield, right? The direct descendants of the Crimson Dragon King being the sword and the shield. If Hawk was a long-lost son of Yohan, that would make so much goddamn sense. Maybe to a different mother, maybe they're half-brothers or something, but this would make a lot of sense. He's the strongest guy in the kingdom, and his son's the strongest guy in the kingdom. They're both Siamese. They both can call the hawk and, or the falcon or whatever, Gulfin and all that stuff. Wouldn't it be poetic? I'm actually on that theory boat now. I think Hawk is an illegitimate child of Yohan now. Because his attitude in this, and the way it's just starting to all make sense. Remember, this is a shoujo manga. Meaning, think soap opera. Think long-lost evil twin brother. Think that shit. Because then you'll get the answers to your theories far more quickly. That's how shoujo manga works. It's basically soap opera in manga form. And I've watched enough Coronation Street, Young and the Restless, All My Children. What was that telenovela I watched? I watched another one. Bold and Beautiful. I never really watched General Hospital. But I've seen enough over my long, long years to know that could be true. Because we're seeing Hawk every single part in this chapter. And then afterwards, the mother tells Yohan the entire story. The Crimson Dragon, the illness, the whole 9 yards. They had a rebellion. It didn't work out. They were cast out as heresy, blah, blah, blah. Yohan is kind of like, okay, let's say I believe you. Let's say I don't. It's irrelevant. But as long as nobody else knows, there's no harm, right? And this is what actually kind of sets up disaster. This was not a good idea by Yohan. Knowing his father, his brother, the priesthood, everyone else involved. Now, could he have foreseen the fact that they could somewhat recognize the Crimson Dragon King's blood in another individual? I mean, once again, he doesn't believe in the mumbo-jumbo. He even says in this chapter, he's not up on that mumbo-jumbo. So, for him, it was probably a very unlikely scenario, if at all possible. But they figure it out and all that such later on down this chapter. However, I love his attitude. He's just like, okay, regardless of that problem, regardless of whether that's true or not true, I don't really care. I love the woman in front of me right now. And I understand how this story, this tale, whether true or not, I don't honestly care. Whether I believe it or not is really irrelevant. The fact of the matter is, I want to marry this woman. So I will put in place what measures I need to so I can marry this woman. Kudos. Yohan is Hawk. He's Hawk, I guess 1.0. Hawk is the 2.0 of Yohan. But cheers to him. He's, like, raise a glass. Have a drink for Yohan. That man was willing to sacrifice so much for the woman he loved. And he was beside himself, and he couldn't fathom a world without his beloved. And he fought for her. And it wasn't that difficult. He was like, yeah, well, it's kind of like, it'd be like if you're an atheist and your future mother-in-law is a Catholic. As long as you promise, now I don't know about every single situation, but if you say, it's irrelevant whether I believe in your God or not, as long as I'm here to protect and honor whatever your daughter wants, that should satisfy you. Now, I'm not saying that every single mother and father in not just religious aspects, but other aspects will be so accepting of the logic behind that, the 2 + 2 = 4 thing. However, in this case, it worked. Her mother was not a stupid woman. She was just fearful and afraid, and she had every right to be. But Yohan's words put her at ease, and she bowed before him. And that works out perfectly. So, at the beginning of the chapter, we jump 3 months ahead. Apparently, their wife and husband, though there has been no ceremony as of yet, because that's the big argument. So, are they really? Are they fiancé? Are they wife? I don't know. Either way, during this chapter, we see that he has no desire to have it at the shrine. Because, of course, we know Yohan was very against, but see, now we're starting to get the story about how he does not like the shrine. He does not like the priesthood. We even meet, after he goes away for a time, we see that Yeon-hee is very lonely at times, She walks around. We meet the guard. Apparently, Yohan was the one to find her the bodyguard and swordmaster of Yohan, or of soo-won, sorry. And a friend, clearly, of his late father, Yohan, and says, hey, this guy's crazy strong. He'll be your bodyguard from now on. And he shatters the place. He's scary, but yada, yada, yada. Now that Yohan vouches for his strength, I'm of no opinion that he's not just as strong as one of the dragons or Hawk, but once again, Hawk is number one. Hawk, to me, once again, is number one. Remember, he looked at this dude when he was 14 years old. He's 18 now, a full-grown man. We see him as a child with feathers in his hair when the last time he saw the man. Now, he has literally fought entire wars and armies by himself. He is fine. So, either way, even Zeno himself said that I wouldn't want to go up against the Mister. That has been implied that Zeno, the immortal, will not go up against Hawk because he's scary. The dude who can't die. Hawk can't kill Zeno. Hawk can't beat Zeno. Zeno doesn't want to fight him. That should speak volumes. So, I mean, you could read into other things like their friendship and blah, 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 but I took that as a more literal stance. Either way, she's walking in the gardens, and she meets, of course, the swordmaster and everything. That's really, really quick. But she actually meets Iksu, the priest who, of course, is the one who, the only priest we know, the bumbling priest with his eyes always covered in the hair and stuff, at the beginning of this entire series. And he's just a small apprentice at this point. We meet another woman. I forget her name. It begins with a K. I think it's Carrara, something like that. I haven't gone back to check, but she is an apprentice maiden of the shrine, and he is an apprentice, priest. And during this stuff, they have a bit of a conversation, but automatically both of them recognize that there's something very special about this woman, Yeon-hee, And then we also get the younger brother, of course, the late King Il in his younger years and such, and he talks to them. And this conversation goes on for a while. It's basically a meet and greet, and then why don't we go to the shrine? It's a really lovely place. I'm just headed there myself right now. Why don't you accompany me? I'm sure if you talk to the high priest, everything will be fine. And honestly, I didn't expect it to go down this way, but I'm glad it did, because I was quite worried about the whole corruption, so to speak. And I love that they monologue. After this point, once they reach the shrine, Yeonhee's inner monologue, she doesn't show it on her facial expression, which is good. Which is very good. She's composed, and she's known to be that way for so long, so that makes sense. Unlike Yona, Yeonhee has been practicing to keep a stone face her entire life, regarding no matter what people say. So this makes total sense that she would have inner thoughts that were like freaking out while she remains stone-faced in the presence of others. So I'm so glad it went down this way, and we'll get to that once I do this, obligatory cut that I do in every review. So cut right now, gonna take a drink. Now I just said we needed to make the obligatory cut, and we did, but I feel like we need to make 2 in this video. Sometimes I do that in my reviews, and you guys know that, because I feel like there's a lot to unpack from the time they enter the shrine to the time that Yohan shows up. There's a lot to unpack there, and I don't want to miss anything, because the inner dialogue, and I just reread this, the inner dialogue of Yeonhee is perfect. I already mentioned this before, but this showcases she knows this is going to be an issue. All she wants, because she likes Il. We knew that from the previous chapters. She likes Il. He's kind-hearted. He's a nice man and stuff like that. And we know that about Il. All we know about Il is that maybe he's the criminal mastermind in the back. That's a theory. But at the end of the day, he's the kind-hearted brother. And Yohan loves his brother. We have understood this. We know all this, right? Okay, so the thing is here is that she shows up to the shrine. She finds it an imposing building, and she recognizes right away why Yohan. It'd be like I'm British, ladies and gentlemen. I don't have the accent, but I'm a British Canadian. So to me, it would be like the Queen of England. It would be like Elizabeth II, William and Kate, Harry and Meghan, all of them, all bowing before the Pope. And this was all radical. Henry VIII had a very big issue with this before, and he said no. And that's hence why we have the Protestant Church. It was all because the British royal family decided no to doing that kind of thing. But here we're seeing the before that. We're seeing the idea that the royal family is bowing their heads at the bottom of a set of stairs while the high priest looks down on them. And that is what Yohan hates the most. And personally, I understand that, because a province or a kingdom ruled by a religion, not by the royal family, or the actual forms of government, not taken into... We know the history of how many atrocities have happened because of religious backing. Salem witch trials, anybody? So there is a huge issue here. Yohan is a visionary, and he decided, you know what? They have been getting themselves involved with government affairs and stuff. Like, we're the leaders of this kingdom. And back then, in these more medieval times, the royal family was not only the royal family, the figureheads, but they were also the prime ministers, the presidents, the leaders. They were the actual leaders of government as well. And to have both the prime ministers, leaders of the country, and royalty bow before someone else just made no sense to him. And we're seeing that right away, because Yeonhee realizes this right away and goes, she speaks it in her mind, and we see it, and it's dreadful. The shot is perfect. It's from a worm's eye view up of Brother Il bowing before the high priest. Forget his name. He looks like a fanatic, and we see he clearly is because he introduces Il introduces Yohan, and all of a sudden he goes wild. It's another Gogi. It's another one of those crazy fanatics going on in here. And you have sensed it too, Kashi, or whatever her name is, the apprentice maiden. You have sensed it too. Ah, yes, this woman. Can it be so? I knew. The blood. It existed. It existed in our world again, but I never dreamed, I never hoped in my lifetime I would see the light. The Crimson Dragon King's bloodline is preserved, and here it is. And it's like, I'm getting some serious Gogi flashbacks, and I'm getting some like Ian McClellan and Da Vinci Code sort of deal, like getting a little too overzealous about the whole bloodline of Christ here thing going on, and we're seeing that right away. Super dangerous. Il is taking it all in his stride, going, are you? And Yohan, thank God, she's got a brain on her head. She has a nice big brain on those shoulders, and she is denying everything. She's like, wait, what? No, I'm not. Hey, wait a minute. No. She's not revealing anything. She's not like, yes. And are the 4 dragons here? Are they protecting you? Where's the rest of your family? Do you know where they are? Blah, blah, blah. And just going through the paces. And she is like, I need to get away from this place now. Right now. This place is evil. This place is not right. And I'm like, yes, she recognizes this was... Once again, I have stated for so many reviews, probably even last year, 2019, 2018 even, that the priesthood was probably a religious cult by the point that Yohan wanted to destroy it. I always like to take that, I forget what movie it was, Nicolas Cage and Ron Perlman are in it, and Ron Perlman, they're doing the Crusades. Ron Perlman says, like, the priest keeps shouting, like, destroy God's enemies, blah, blah, blah. Ron Perlman asks one of the best questions in the movie and says, for such an almighty God, do you ever think that he might have one too many enemies? So it's one of those things, and it's not the God's fault. It's the overzealousness of the religion, of the organized religion that is a problem. We're really seeing this. I might have to make a separate video about this because we need to delve deep into what this priesthood represents, because it represents the dark side of organized religion. And we've only got that like top layer of what happened. There was a priesthood, Yohan destroyed it, and he's a tyrant. That's our level right here. But from the few chapters we have seen, can you see Yohan doing that? Can you see him spiking the heads of every single person and lobbing them over the city walls with catapults? Prisoners of war? Can you see him doing these things now? Can you see the one who went and tended to his sick son in bed at the age of 7? Can you see that? Can you see this man? Every single time we've seen him, can you picture him doing these things? Like, yes, we have seen Yohan lose his temper. We've seen Hawk go mad. We've seen that. But to the point of doing these things without proper reasoning, provocation, anything like that. This is something that is deep, deep within this series. And I hope they continue to unravel this tale. I don't want this flashback to end in like 5, 6. I want this flashback to go up until chapter 200. And now that we're so close to the 200 mark, I feel like 200 is when we're going to jump back. And because I feel like there's enough material here to warrant 8 more chapters of this. I truly feel that way. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comment section down below, and we will move on to the last part of the chapter, because after all this happens in the shrine, Yohan is freaking out. Il is mad with you're the Crimson Dragon, blah 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 descendant. Where are the 4 dragons? Blah! And then the man himself shows up, yelling, "Ew! How dare you take my wife to this place?" And then we get the last section of the chapter. So Yohan shows up, basically bellowing at his brother, saying, "You know how much I hate this place. Why did you bring my wife here? Brother, what is wrong with you?" This is where Il speaks what the priest has figured out and such. And clearly they have some type of, I guess, I won't say like divine power, but some type of insight. Same with, we see this with Iksu, or Ikso, and I wonder where they got this blessing, because they do seem to have some form of insight or foresight or blessing to be able to recognize a descendant of the Crimson Dragon King right away. And that's very interesting. And also, what happens next puts into perspective of what he continues to say about his own daughter Yona, because what we get is Il decides to say, did you know this is, she's a descendant of the Crimson Dragon King? Yohan, to his credit, tries to deny it right away and said, "What, are you sleep talking? What type of, this place is giving you hallucinations. Come on, my wife, we're going back. We're leaving this place. I didn't want you coming here in the first place." Il is actually quite smart and knows his brother very well and realizes the moment he's lying, to his credit. However, here's where we see the ugly side of King Il, the future King Il, where he says, "You knew, didn't you, brother? Did you think by not telling me that I would be attracted to that bloodline and want her for myself?" And I was like, whoa, where is this? Like, this entire speech is out of nowhere. It is a curveball, and we were not expecting this. I don't think anybody was expecting this reaction. And you can see where this is why Yohan, most likely, this has probably started he was already hating the priesthood, and now it has made his own brother a jealous, conniving, thinks the only thing that matters is the Crimson Dragon King's blood. Because the kind-hearted and loving brother, King Il, thinks so low of his brother, saying, Did you think, had you told me the truth, that I would desire her for myself, that I would be too attracted to the Dragon King's blood?" It's like, whoa, nobody even said that, but your mind went there, Il. And then he says, "Or the whole time you were mocking me for my brother, my own brother, mocking me for my reservation, for my faith in the Crimson Dragon King. Meanwhile, you wanted the king's bloodline for yourself, didn't you? You wanted to monopolize. You knew, and you actually, while mocking me and laughing at me behind my back, you actually wanted her bloodline for yourself, didn't you, brother?" I'm like, whoa. And then the fist comes up flying, and Yohan punches his brother out with one slug to the jaw. And he's lucky he got away that easy, in my opinion. Because already we're seeing this kind-hearted younger brother who couldn't hurt a fly, and we're seeing the envy, the jealousy, the anxiety of this man. And all of it stems from his faith in this priesthood. And now we're seeing Yohan's fears become realized. The end part of the chapter states this is where the priesthood's oppression began. So I'm very excited for chapter 193. Because I would like to think that once again, a lot of people will take this and run with it and make full conclusions. But I'm cautioning patience. Wait, my Padawan learners. Wait for a moment. Because we still don't have the full story. King Il was still the kind man that we knew back in the first chapter, years later. And we have no idea. Right now we're seeing a very young, from all intents and purposes, he might be a teenager or a little older. And that's all we're seeing right now. We're seeing a very young King Il lashing out because he is overzealous. He's a fanatic of his religion. And we're seeing a little bit of he believes his brother might have betrayed him. He recognizes that his brother is lying, which is fair, and thinks that his brother, who mocked him, who he always let slide off because he knew his brother was an atheist, but loved him anyways. It's a devout Catholic with an atheist brother, but they love each other, but then basically recognizing that his brother is dating the daughter of Christ. And he's going, and you knew? And that's right now, that's messing with his mind. And I can sympathize with that and understand it. So Yohan had every right to punch him out. And Il did not have the right to speak to his brother that way. However, this is going to set up the divergence, the line between the two factions. And I think we're going to see a much more interesting tale than any of us expected when we first heard about the priesthood being destroyed back in like Volume 1 or 2. I think it was Volume 1. But in Volume 1 or 2, when we first met Iksu, and he tells of the priesthood and Yohan's destruction of it and all this fun jazz, I don't think any of us expected it to start and go down this way. So I'm very, very interested to see what's going to happen next. And that's basically the chapter. So I hope you guys really enjoyed it. I thought it was action-packed. In all honesty, I could keep talking about the implications of what this all means. But this video has gone on long enough. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, comment, and subscribe. It's always very much appreciated. This has been Griever with your behind-the-bar reviews of Akatsuki no Yona, chapter 192. And we will see you back here next time, ladies and gentlemen. Drink responsibly as always. See ya.